Hey, what's good, y'all? J Boogie in full effect mode. Bun down is the sound. You know how we do. This is, of course, the Lounge Presents podcast. We're streaming right now live on Twitch. And, of course, like every other episode, this is going to be streaming on demand via Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Today, in the lounge space, we have the pleasure of welcoming for the first time the director of Drop the Needle. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up one time. Rob Freeman.
Well, there we go. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, no, thank you for coming on. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. I feel like we had some early communication about getting you on when the original doc was going to drop. Did we not? I could be mistaken.
We had conversations. I can't remember exactly the details.
Yeah.
From the past, yeah. I'll tell you, it's been a little bit of a crazy couple of years since the movie came out in terms of just the communication with so many people in terms of connected to the movie, maybe connected to the scene, but we're not in the movie. And I always had a bad memory from the start. So the last couple of years has really tested my ability to recall names and conversations.
There you go. Now, Rob, we always start off by asking our guests how they were first introduced to hip hop culture.
Well, I can't recall too many details. I remember I had a friend of mine who had a Digital Underground cassette.
Nice.
It was a Sex Packets cassette, right?
Hey.
I don't know if anyone remembers that particular album or not. But there was a couple of risque songs and sketches that were heard during it. So I don't know if it was like the 12-year-old humor of those risque songs that kind of drew me to
Might have caught on later.
Yeah, and honestly though, even though it was like the mainstream hit, Humpty Dance was like still to this day is a classic song. So it was that album that kind of I don't know was the one that kind of sucked me into everything, and often I went from there. Was buying Black Sheep and Tribe Called Quest, and was kind of really getting into that sort of conscious, they call it backpack rap. I've never understood the term, to be honest with you, but it was that really kind of caught fire with me. Later on, it was getting into the East Coast, West New York, and West Coast with the LA, but it was definitely that kind of conscious rap that caught my attention early and probably held it throughout.
There you go.
Since day one.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Now, obviously, we are here to talk about Drop the Needle, specifically because you're dropping the B-side, but we'll get into that in just a moment.
Yep.
The big question is, what inspired you to do Drop the Needle?
Well, it was actually my friend, a co-producer of the movie, Neil Echeria, who came up with the idea.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah, we grew up in Kingston. From a long time, we were always trying to make something happen. Whether it be making a feature film with friends, or we tried to make a documentary a long time ago about street promotion, flyering and posting.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen so often anymore. But before Facebook and the internet and all that stuff,
right?
When you left a club at like 6 o'clock in the morning, or it was a rave more than anything. But if you were leaving a rave or leaving a club, you always had to kind of walk through a tunnel of about 5 or 6 people that were just handing out flyers.
Oh yeah,
right.
Handbills.
You look at the ground, and there's flyers everywhere on the ground. We tried to do a documentary kind of on that topic.
Okay.
It wasn't good at all. The sound was terrible. The lighting was terrible. It was basically, we had material to fit about a 30-minute movie, but I really wanted an hour, a 90-minute, hour and a half. So I try to stretch it out as much as possible. Right. So it was a really, really bad end product, but it was also one of the best things I did because it allowed me to learn exactly the mistakes I was making. I can't do camera work. I wish I could, but I can't. So I got to hire someone or bring someone on who can do that. I can't do lighting. I can't capture great sound. So it's letting me understand what I could do and what I couldn't do and what I needed help to bring on with. So fortunately, I did a documentary. I did a YouTube documentary when the Raptors won a championship. I was a big Raptors fan. I remember back in the day going to HMV and always seeing in the sports section, they would have DVD releases like a championship recap. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
I always thought to myself, man, if the Raptors ever won one, I would love to make my own of those. So they won, and I made my own, and I ended up uploading it to YouTube. And during the pandemic, for whatever reason, it caught on fire to the point where it's now at 800,000 views. But more importantly, was the comments and the feedback were really, there was strong response to what I had done.
Oh, I'm sure.
That gave me the confidence then to say, okay, let's now try to do this for real. And that's why I talked to Neil and said, Neil, do you have any ideas? I was kind of thinking sports related because of what I just did.
Mm-hmm.
He, though, was thinking already about doing a written article on Play to Record. He's a journalist.
Right.
He was thinking about doing a written article on Play to Record already. So he suggested it. And I didn't know much about the store. I heard of it, obviously. I didn't know much about the store, but I did know enough to know that it definitely seemed like it had a lot of potential. I didn't know the full extent of it, but I just knew there was some potential. And that's kind of where we went off and running from that point.
Now, you're referring to Neil Acharya?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what was his interest in possibly doing a story on Plady? Is it his love of hip hop, or I mean, I know he has a journalism background. Obviously, he's got that.
He had a family and friends because we grew up in Kingston.
Yeah,
he had friends and family that were DJing from Kingston, so they were making the trek up, and so he kind of got a little bit of a glimpse early on in terms of what was going on with Plady at that point in time. He was a little more in tune with the story than I was. So I think that the fact is he saw more of I definitely saw potential early on, but I didn't know what it was. I think he saw the potential and knew what it was.
Right.
So I think that's just really, he just saw the story and knew it would make a great story.
Before we go on, I would like to note that the doc that you posted on YouTube, the Raptors doc, that was called Northern Uprising, right?
That's right.
Yeah, definitely make sure folks check that out, especially if you're a Raptor fan or if you just love ball.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun to make. I really wanted to make a new version of an updated version because it's still a little rough around the edges.
Mm-hmm.
But the Raptors just put out one about a month ago that really kind of broke my heart because I had this dream of doing an official version of it. Yeah. But they just put one out like recently, so it's kind of like a bad timing.
There you go. I mean, there's no saying you can't revisit it in the future,
Oh yeah, you never know what could happen.
Yeah, exactly. Some sort of weird inspiration might pop in.
I like basketball a lot, so like the idea of doing something basketball related in the future is definitely something that hangs on my mind. What it is, who knows? But I definitely would love to do something basketball related at some point in the future.
There you go. Now, for anyone who is hustling in film, they would most definitely be the most familiar with the grind of putting features together.
Yeah.
It's not an easy task in the least. And you self-financed?
Yes.
Can we start there? Like self-financing, that's crazy. Salute, first of all, that you were able to pull that off. Did the idea of applying for grants just didn't work for you?
Well, so it goes back to the beginning where when I was younger, I really had a little bit of an issue where I believe because I watched a lot of movies that I had this skill set already. This is what happened with this Flyer documentary. When we go into the Flyer documentary, I already thought that I knew how to do everything just because I watched a lot of movies. Like, wow, I like Scorsese movies. So I must be really good at camera work, right?
Yeah.
and so, but the problem was that mentality set me back in a major way. And that's where that learning curve of that Flyer documentary was really helpful, where I looked at the end of it saying, okay, wait a sec now, this is garbage. This isn't good. Maybe I don't know everything. Maybe, but the problem was that happened, later on where you kind of really want to get into the groove in terms of the education system and you want to get on sets and you want to start at the bottom early in your career. I was starting late in the career of being a production assistant on a few films. So the idea of going through grants and the learning curve and the process of what it takes, because it's not just one person going for a grant. How many grants do they get? They probably get, hundreds. I know they get hundreds of grants every time, every deadline proposal at the time period. So for me, it was like, I felt confident because of the Northern Uprising thing where I said, I don't want to go through this. I want to just take the shot here. I have the ability to do so financially and I have the confidence because of what we just did. So let's do it this way. The ideal situation though would have been when I was 20 years old, 19 years old, getting on sets, doing the PA stuff, and starting from the bottom really much early on. I just had too much of an ego at that point in time to do that kind of stuff, and that's unfortunately, I don't have regrets because I'm very happy now with what we have in our hands.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same point in time, it might have been a little bit nice to kind of start a little bit earlier in the proper way.
So when the idea became solidified and it was time to put pencils, did you storyboard it first?
No, it was nothing like that. It was because during the pandemic, and I was working at a theater at that point in time, and the theater obviously is the first thing to close during that and the last one. Yeah. But I was a little bit optimistic because I remember when we started talking about it, the case count, it was the summer, so everyone's outside, the case count was going down, and I was under the assumption that I was going to be going back to work in November. So for us to do this, we had to do this now, and we had to do it quick, and we had to move on the fly. And really, when it comes to what we think about documentaries and whatnot, I think of ideas like I'll listen to music and I'll kind of think to myself, okay, how can we start the movie? How can we have an opening credit sequence? How can we maybe end the movie or have ideas how to end it when we know more of the story? But most of the stuff, though, is stuff that we discover in the editing phase. So it's like, okay, let's get people in front of the camera. Let's see what extra stuff we could film for B-roll. That maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't. And Neil, who does an excellent job of what he does, because he's doing the questions and answers, asking the questions. Right. He's just figuring out what kind of interesting topics to ask about, and then as we go along with the interviews, we kind of fine tune it a little bit. So, and as we figure out the story, right? Yeah. But there isn't I would say 15 to 20% was figured out before we started or early on. The rest of it was figured out during the editing process.
I hear that. I can totally see why that's the case. This doc, again, such a wonderfully, masterfully put together doc.
Thank you.
Salute. I can't stress that. I can't stress how much we enjoyed watching this. Yeah. Once you get to the heart of it, though, this doc is just as much about Eugene Tam as it is about Plady Record.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's funny too because he's only in the movie for 8 or 9 minutes, which is funny. But the thing is, they have everyone talking about him, and you have all the archive and stuff. But he is the heart and soul of the film. There's no doubt about that.
Yes. What were your thoughts when you first met Eugene Tam, seeing as he's going to be, a huge part of the footage that you shoot?
So for me personally, when I first met him, I talked to him briefly. We traded emails already about potentially doing this documentary, but when I first met him, I went in just to say hi, and he was really cold and to the point and didn't seem really open. And so I only had this quick conversation. I left the store thinking to myself, oh my goodness, we're in trouble. Like our main topic, our main subject is terrible, right? He's going to give one word answers. Like, what are we going to do? But the thing about Eugene was, and it's kind of like his dad. You might hear about his dad during the documentary. His dad was really has a tough exterior, right? Really tough guy. Yeah. So with Eugene, I always got the impression where that initial reaction is kind of probably like how his dad is, like very I don't know if on guard is the right word, but just
maybe reserved,
very reserved and whatnot, right? But then within about a minute of talking to Eugene, that's when the guard comes down very quickly. And then you discover and find everyone who knows Eugene and what you hopefully see in the movie is that he's a lovely, warm-hearted guy.
Right.
Just that my first interaction was only that 60 seconds. So I only saw that guarded side of him. So I was definitely concerned about it. But once we had a second conversation, it went away quickly.
It's a good recollection because I think that a lot of people can relate to, first meeting Eugene. Because he's so reserved, it's almost as if not necessarily that you have to pass muster for him to, give you a little bit more. Yeah. But I feel like he needs to know how serious you are about why you're there. Yeah. And then once he figures that out, then I think he starts to open up a little bit.
He's also been a guy who's seen so many people over 30 years coming in, people that were asking him to work with them, asking to do this, asking to do that. So, and he's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So it's definitely understandable. It's definitely understandable where he doesn't know who I am. He knows Neil a little bit, but he doesn't know who I am. Right. So it's kind of understandable why there is a little bit of that guard. But the good thing about Neil is since day one, Neil has been a great talker. He's been great at like kind of striking a quick bond with people. So when I went in the second time with Neil and kind of Neil was started talking to him, it was really easy to kind of get comfortable and have him be with us mentally about what we were doing. And a lot of the credit goes to Neil because of his ability to make small talk, which is an important skill set in this business.
No doubt. No doubt. Now you had, I don't know, I feel like you had up to almost around 50 or 60 people that you spoke with for this doc.
It's 60. I can't remember the exact number anymore. 55 to 60.
That's a lot of footage to go through.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That's a lot of footage to go through.
But you know what, though? I'd rather have a lot than a little.
Oh, yeah.
And because the B side, we only filmed. So I might be jumping ahead a little bit here, but for the
by all means,
for the follow-up documentary, the idea for the DVD Blu-ray release was to one day shoot as many people as we can, 10-minute interviews each, right? So we had like 22 people, 10 minutes each, just get a couple sound bites that I could then play with in the editing room, right? So from one extreme, which was the original documentary when we had so much footage and so many sound bites, to the other where it was a lot more selective or limited, I should say, to what we had available. Even though the other one's more time consuming, I will take more any day of the week, just because, this is a better problem to have, having too much gold.
Yes, exactly. Very true. Yeah. Who was of all the notable people in there, and there's a lot, we could list off a gang, but for purposes that are a little closer to us, we've had a sizable amount of people in the doc on the podcast. So I mean, DJ Mel Boogie, Socrates, Daniel, Mastermind, Click, Chemo, Tough Dumpling. I mean, but on top of that, there's like so many more. Who's the first person you spoke with?
Mastermind. There was the first day, two people the first day was Mastermind and Mel Boogie.
You catch that?
What's that?
Oh, Mastermind. Great. Oh,
yeah, Mastermind, and then Mel Boogie was the second one.
Okay, nice. I couldn't think of two better people to start with. Were they easy to open up when you first started talking with them?
Well, is Neil? See, we did split kind of who we were talking to, but it just happened to be those first two people. Neil was the one who talked to them, and I think it was a relatively easy time from my recollection of what Neil said. I do know that the interviews were really easy. I think when it came to the actual interviews, when people kind of heard the kind of questions we were asking, which was we were kind of digging into the culture and the store and the impact of the store. And once people kind of heard that, even though they didn't know who we were necessarily, they could see that there was potential in what we were doing. Right. Yeah. So I think there was a little bit more willingness to say, okay, let's give it, let's be open in terms of what we're saying and during the interview. Let's give this a shot. Let's give them a shot because the potential is certainly there. And they do seem like they have the potential to tell the story properly, which is really important because it is to a lot of people. This is a very, very important story, a very important, store in Eugene, but it's a very important story. So the fact that we were I was going to say nobodies. We're not nobodies, but the fact that nobody knew who we were, or we didn't have a strong track record to show people, there's obviously going to be some concern. But I think that we just were upfront, and we the way we, again, credit goes to Neil a lot for this because he was able to phrase questions in a way that let people know that we are on a track here of looking for information that's going to tell the story properly.
Nice.
That's what I think is what happened.
No, I think, and I think that comes across very. You can tell the ease in which each subject openly discussed everything. The favorite scenes, which was really close to my heart, was you had footage from Scratch of Toronto when they had a sesh inside Platey before Platey moved.
Yeah, at the end of it, yeah. That was DJ Dopey, I think, was one of the people in there.
Do you have some lag?
There was a little bit of lag hitting right now, yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, I think we've got some lag.
Yeah,
Did you catch that last question?
I heard the question, yeah. Can you hear me okay? How about now?
Oh, just a little bit of cutout. Oh,
Is it
that's
okay?
better. That's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
The last day was DJ Dopey, I think was one of the main people
Yes.
performing. And that footage was really important. The one thing I will say is I kind of was hoping that we would have more archive. When we started, I was very naive. I thought we were going to have a lot of archive material. So one thing I didn't want was a really talking head heavy documentary, and it did end up being a talking head but I was thinking to myself, man, there's going to be a lot of pictures and a lot of videos. But little did I know that before obviously cell phones became a thing, who's going to play the record with camera? Like people are going to play the record, to socialize, but as a business thing. We need to get these records. We need to, get these flyers in there. We need to get, there's a lot of. There wasn't time for taking pictures and being like that kind of stuff. It was a business type of thing. So the archive material was a little more limited than I was expecting going in.
That's fair. That's fair. And then you bring up a great point. And I think that anyone that came up, through the 90s can acknowledge that we didn't because we didn't document everything on video, and we don't have the benefit of doing it because we didn't have social media back then.
Yeah. That's why when doing the B-side was because the B-side takes place post 2016 is what our focus is on.
Oh, nice.
So it was a lot more of a different experience where now I'm like, wow, I could go on Facebook, I could type in something that I'm looking for. And if someone has it, I mean, I have to ask get their permission, of course, but it makes it a lot easier to find things that I'm looking for. So it was a night and day difference for finding archive material between the original one, which was mostly 1990s, and this one, which is more 2016 to now.
So Drop the Needle, the B-side is basically the B-side to the original doc.
Yeah, exactly. The original doc's the A-side. This is the B-side. We're flipping the record over.
Yeah.
New interviews, except with Eugene. Actually, there's a couple. We had Grouch, Aki from Cosmo Records, and Nick Holders, the people that carried over, just to have some of that perspective. But it was mostly new people. We had MC Flipside, DJ T Jr., Demir, Danny Miles. We got a lot of Raz Fresco. So we try to have a nice selection of people that maybe had a hand in what was going on back in the day, but it certainly has a hand in what's going on today.
When you were interviewing all the subjects, were there any subjects that were particularly difficult to reach, or was it literally, oh yo, you need to get a hold of him, I got you? Was it easy, or was
for the new one or for the old one?
For the old one.
Oh, the old one was tougher.
Yeah.
The old one was tougher, not so much to get the initial yes, but when it came to people would say yes, but then when it came to actually scheduling an interview, that was a little bit of a different story, right? Like they'll say, oh yeah, I'll do it. But then when it came to actually nail them down, say, okay, here's the time, here's the date, here's the place.
Yeah.
Then it became a lot more challenging. Now, one thing that I did was, because again, no one knew who we were really, and I wanted to build credibility. So I asked people like, hey, do you mind taking a picture with the slate? The slate that I have, it's in the documentary. And I said, can you take a picture of this and post this on your social media pages? And that way anyone that follows you is going to see it. And at least it's going to maybe gain a little bit of credibility seeing you associated with it, right? So the first couple of weeks was definitely tougher, but then we took a 2-week break. And then the last couple of days became much easier because now by that point in time, people were posting stuff. The word was gotten out. The credibility had gained to the point where now people are like, yeah, okay, let's do this. Yeah. That initial 2-3 weeks was challenging just because we had to gain credibility that we didn't have tons of at that stage.
And obviously that just makes it easier to do the B-side because after this coming out, everyone's going to want to, if you reach out, I'm there.
The B-side was a lot easier. Yeah, it was. And the funny thing is we had to schedule 20 people in the span of one day. And even that, I was like, and people are going to be like wanting to do it, but the people were also, I found, willing to really bend their schedules around to make it work for me, which was great, right? So it was definitely a much different experience from that side of things for the B-side.
And that's completely understandable because if you really think about it, Plady has been such a source of music for so long, for so many people, not just in Toronto, but like across Canada. It's no secret that when you're in town, Plady is where you stop for. Literally, that's one of the first places you stop.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I was going to say Scratch Bastard was telling a story. I'm going to hopefully put up the deleted scene at some point in time. But I mean, he's talking about coming to Halifax and having like friends who are coming to Halifax just stopping there because he knew about it in Halifax. Chemo in Vancouver, he's coming and visiting Play D, even though they got a great place over there, Beat Street Records.
Yeah, they got Beat Street.
They're still wanting to come to Play the record. So,
of course.
It was a well known. Maybe it wasn't well known for like a general public side of things, but anyone who was into the DJ culture absolutely knew about Play the record was.
Definitely knew. Yeah. When the initial doc dropped, were you able to initiate a festival run of any sort?
Well, we had a bunch of screenings in Toronto. We had one in 2 or 3 in Calgary. We had one in Vancouver. We had a distributor with Level Films. So with Level Films, they were able to like get the movie into like different places for like one-off screenings or 2 screenings.
Right.
So the only problem, we didn't get that much in the East Coast. That was the only problem because people unfortunately still looked at this as a very Toronto-centric story, which it is to a certain
extent. It is, yeah.
But it's like, so what? I watch documentaries that are very LA centric or New York.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I never, that kind of mentality. But the problem is that they just didn't know about Play D, so they saw it as a niche thing, which again it kind of is. They saw it as a niche thing, Toronto centric. So we had a couple of hard times kind of getting it out to one side of the country, but we did have an easier time with the West Coast.
There you go. There you go. So when does the B-side drop?
May 1st. It'll be exclusively on the Blu-ray DVD of the original documentary.
Nice.
We're going to have, I can't say anything yet, but we're hopefully going to have a couple of DJs inside Play the Record on the Thursday it drops. Try to make it a little bit of a thing. But we're also looking, we have Taz Records in Halifax, Dr. Disc in Hamilton, Beat Street in Vancouver, and hopefully more to be announced soon. Cosmo Records is another one in Toronto, but that will also be carrying the documentary. So you can order it off the Playdies website. But, the documentary is about independent record stores and that vibe.
Exactly.
So I want people to go into their local. Like, that's why when people say it doesn't translate, it does.
Oh, it
does.
This
why people play the record, but Beat Street Records is their version of it. But it's the same thing. There's Recordland in Calgary. They have their own version of it, but it's the same idea. So I wanted to get customers to give them an excuse to go into their local place. So that's what I'm trying to do in the next couple of weeks is kind of get some more stores on board and give you a reason to kind of go down to your local record store, pick up the disc, and socialize a little bit, hang out, and enjoy yourself. It's better than ordering online, which is something that we talk about in the B-side documentary. Going into your store is much more important than ordering online. So I'm going to try to make that as possible. If I can't, though, you can still order it online.
Well, you're doing it at a time, thankfully, when physical media is at its popularity has shot through the roof.
Well, for records, it has. I don't know about Blu-rays and DVDs, though. They stopped making. It's not.
Yeah,
they're the same thing because Netflix and Amazon Prime hits a different way than Spotify. But I personally still love collecting, right? And I think that people who do collect records will still have that love. Like you said, they're a little more prone to physical media.
That's most definitely true.
Yeah.
And it's very evident now. Artists are all putting out physical merch because people want something to hold.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm agree with that.
And for a doc like this, I mean, come on. Like this this is now sitting. I mean, if we're looking on the grander scale about the hip hop pantheon in Canada, this very much sits smack dab in the middle now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where one of the things I say is own a piece of history. I mean, if this is a retelling of a history that's not been told a lot of, this is your chance to kind of own it and support it and get a B-side documentary, get a commentary from me and Neil. And hopefully with what happens with this DVD Blu-ray, we can then continue to tell more news stories. Like I'm ready to tell something new now. We've been doing Play the Record for a couple of years. Loved every second of it, but I'm ready to tell something else.
I'm sure you are.
And so this will definitely help that. So by getting the DVD Blu-ray, you're definitely supporting us in continuing this ball of telling interesting stories kind of through our lens, me and Neil's lens.
Exactly. And obviously supporting independent film.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially on Canada, and that was it, Canada Film Day or whatever it is.
Yeah, today is.
So,
That's right. Today's
yeah,
Canada Film Day.
yeah.
That is
Good timing,
correct.
eh?
Well, Rob, I really want to thank you for spending time with us in the lounge space today.
Well, thanks for having me.
I gotta big you up because you and Neil did such a great job doing the Drop the Needle doc.
Well, I
Salute,
appreciate that. I appreciate that so
salute.
much. And thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
I hope to get you back in here again in the future.
Not fingers crossed. Hopefully, it won't be too long.
There you go. Thanks again, Rob. Thank you very much. Make sure you get your hands on the physical copy of Drop the Needle B-side when it drops May 1st.
Thank you very much.
And we out. Thank you.
Thank
Peace.
you.